Peace be upon you, and welcome to a new episode. In a village in Upper Egypt, there was a woman named Fatima. She used to leave early in the morning to go to her farmland. Suddenly, she noticed a dog standing there, eating from a black plastic bag, and a severed human hand was sticking out of it. Fatima screamed. The neighbors rushed over. The police arrived, and the whole village was shocked. The question is, whose hand is this? And what happened to its owner? This is a crime that shook Egypt, and I will tell you all the details step by step. And before we start our story, don't forget to like and share the episode so it reaches as many people as possible. Tune in every Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday for a new episode. Without getting into too many details, let's dive into the heart of our story. The story begins on April 26, 2024, a Friday. Haja Aisha Muhammad Sawai, a 75-year-old woman born in 1949, lived a simple, peaceful life. Since childhood, she had grown up in a poor family. She never learned to read or write, nor did she acquire any craft or trade. Her family was close-knit, always dreaming of a better future despite the poverty that surrounded them. In the 1960s, when she reached marrying age, a proposal came from a humble man like her, Hajj Ali Abdel Salam al-Sadawi. He was kind-hearted and slightly better off financially thanks to his work in farming, but he wasn't rich. Her father didn't refuse the proposal at all and said, "He's a man who will take care of her and build a family with her." And indeed, Aisha got married and settled in a house very close to her family home in Kafrubaid, so she could stay near her mother and sisters and feel safe in every step she took. Their married life was calm, full of responsibility and simple love. Ali was a responsible man who loved and respected her, and they made decisions together. Despite the daily pressure of poverty, there was a shared sense of duty that kept the marriage strong and thriving. With time, Allah blessed them with two sons. The first, Muhammad, named after his grandfather, and the second, Tawfiq, nicknamed Toba, the youngest, as people in the countryside say, the last of the bunch. This small family of four lived in relative peace. They ate together every day, prayed their obligatory prayers side by side, and dreamed of a better future for the boys, even though money was scarce and the days were long. As the years passed, the boys grew up little by little, but Hajj Ali decided not to send them to school because their financial situation simply wouldn't allow it. The schools were far away, and they couldn't afford books or transportation. So he told his wife, "It's better they learn a practical trade that can help them in everyday life." He began teaching them hands-on work from a young age. Muhammad, the eldest, learned construction, how to build walls, cut stone, shape bricks, and mix cement, until he became a skilled craftsman by his mid-teens, around 15 years old. He used to start work at dawn and return at night exhausted but happy to be helping his family. Toba, the younger son, learned farming from his father, how to plant wheat and clover, tend to sheep, milk them every morning, and sell the milk at the market. By the age of 14, he was going out with his father every day, learning the hardships of life and building his own future with his hands. He would even give part of his earnings to his mother. These two boys were Aisha's pillars, supporting her in everything, bringing food, repairing the house, and making her feel she was never alone in this world. But fate, as we know, never lets anyone rest for long. In the late 1980s, Hajj Ali passed away after a short illness caused by a stroke, leaving Aisha alone with her two sons. The loss was devastating, especially since Aisha didn't know how to work or manage household expenses on her own. She had always relied on her husband for everything, from buying clothes to paying bills. But Allah granted her goodness through her sons. Muhammad and Toba grew up to become the support she needed in every moment. In the 1990s, Muhammad traveled to Saudi Arabia to work in construction and earn more money. Later, in 2005, he returned and took his mother with him for Hajj. He continued to send her a fixed monthly allowance from Saudi Arabia, while Toba worked in farming and small trade in the village, selling vegetables in Abshway Market, helping with daily expenses, and buying food and medicine. Life was stable. Aisha lived in Toba's house in Kafr Ubaid, sometimes alone when he was out working, but surrounded by kind neighbors and relatives. She used to visit her sister Swad every week and return home feeling at peace. She never liked staying away from home for long. That was her daily routine. On April 26, 2024, Wafaa, next-door neighbor, a 52-year-old woman, was in severe financial distress. Her debts were piling up every day. Wafaa was an ordinary housewife, married to Ahmed Saber, who worked as an officer at the Ministry of Agriculture, a respectable man. But debts had accumulated on them from bills and loans. In 2023, Wafaa borrowed a large sum from neighbors, around 200,000 Egyptian pounds, in cash and household items, and she couldn't repay even a small part. The creditors pressured her daily. Ahmed had to pay some of it from his own pocket, but under the psychological and financial strain, he suddenly fell ill and died at Abshway Center Hospital, a huge blow to the family. Wafaa became a widow with 2 children, but the debts didn't stop. They increased. The electricity bill was overdue, the gas ran out, and there wasn't enough food. After her husband's death, Wafaa kept borrowing money from a neighbor, a gas cylinder from someone else. She would enter people's houses like it was her own. If the door was open, she'd go into the kitchen, eat, drink, and borrow without shame or hesitation. At first, the neighbors felt pity for her, but over time the loans became many. Wafaa was in a state of complete despair. Her mental health suffered. She slept late, woke up frightened, and thought all day about how to repay her debts. She'd already lost a son in a car accident earlier, which deepened her pain. On April 26, 2024, the day Aisha was at her sister Sawad's, Wafaa was standing at the window of her own house, which faces Sawad's house exactly, because the houses are attached. She saw Aisha entering Swad's wearing her simple clothes and a small gold earring in her ear. Only 7 grams. But to Wafaa, it looked like a treasure that could save her. The gram price then was about 3,000 Egyptian pounds, so the earring was worth roughly 21,000 Egyptian pounds, enough to cover a big part of the debts, buy food for the children, or pay an overdue electricity bill. That moment was the beginning. Wafaa stood there thinking, her eyes fixed on the shiny earring, and she said to herself, "This is the solution. But how can I take it without anyone knowing?" She sat and considered her options alone in the house. The child was asleep and the night long. The first option was to borrow again from a neighbor, but the neighbors were fed up and would say no. The second option, sell her personal belongings, like old clothes or kitchenware, but nothing was worth much. It wouldn't cover even a quarter of the debt. The third option, which struck her like a lightning bolt, was Aisha. Why Aisha in particular? Because she was old, 75, her health was weak, she wouldn't be able to defend herself in a sudden attack, and she wouldn't cry out loudly because of her frailty. Also, Aisha completely trusted her. Neighbors treated her like a daughter. And the earring was always visible. Wafaa had learned its value from the women talking in the street. The plan began to form in her mind as if she were writing a crime movie script. The plan, friends, was simple on the surface but devilishly calculated, based on Wafaa's knowledge of the village, daily routines, people, and Aisha's vulnerability. That night, after she had seen Aisha, she executed the first step. She went to her and said in a soft, persuasive voice, "Ya Hajja Aisha, I want to apply for you for an extra pension from the government for the elderly, from the Ministry of Social Solidarity. There's a good increase that will help your expenses. Come with me tomorrow morning at 6. We'll go together before the office gets crowded so we make it." Aisha, whose kindness made her trust anyone, agreed without thinking. She went home and slept feeling reassured. That was her last night alive and her last decision made with a pure heart. Wafaa returned home, bought the bags and a new cleaver, cleaned the knife, and slept thinking about how she would carry out the plan. On April the 27th, 2024, at exactly 6 a.m., Aisha put on her clothes and went to Wafaa's house. The security cameras on the main street of Kafar Ubaid recorded her entering the door, but nobody noticed at the time. That footage would later become the first piece of evidence in the investigation. Inside the house, Wafaa was waiting, her eyes full of resolve, and she told Aisha, "Come, Hajja, I'll prepare a quick breakfast so we can eat before we go. The office is a bit far." Aisha entered the kitchen completely at ease and stood by the stove watching Wafaa prepare the bread and eggs. Suddenly, in a single instant, Wafaa attacked her with a large kitchen knife from the drawer, stabbing her in the neck and making Aisha fall to the floor silently. Blood flowed immediately. A second stab to the chest and a third to the abdomen followed before Aisha could cry out or make a sound the neighbors would hear. Wafaa paused for a few seconds, and her mind sprang into action. First, she pulled the gold earring from Aisha's ear and took it. Then she began cutting the body immediately. She locked all the house doors, went to the back animal pen, which is not visible from the street, used the sharp knife and the new cleaver, and cut the body into pieces. She put everything into large black garbage bags. 5 bags in total. The dismemberment took hours, and at night she began disposing of the bags. The first bag she threw into the drainage channel at Esbet Gilani, tossing it into the irrigation water so fish and insects would consume it. The second bag she threw in the same area but about 300 meters away. Over the course of 2 hours, she gradually dumped all 5 bags so no one would see her carrying a heavy load. She buried the head at the entrance, digging a small hole under the tiles, placing it inside, covering it with sand, and fitting a new tile over it. Afterwards, she sold the earring in Abshwe market for 18,000 Egyptian pounds, used it to buy food for her children, and paid a small portion of the debt, saying to herself, "That's it, everything's finished." On April the 28th, 2024, the next day, Wafaa went to visit Saud, Aisha's sister. She entered the kitchen, as she usually did, cooked herself some eggs and bread, ate, and chatted with Saud for a bit. Then she returned home. But inside, she was terrified. She cleaned the house every hour, scrubbed the floor with disinfectant, afraid that the smell of blood might come out, or someone might notice. She kept thinking, if anyone suspects me, what will I say? The next day, April 29th, 2024, Aisha's disappearance became obvious. Toba, Aisha's younger son, noticed that his mother wasn't home and that he hadn't heard her voice in the morning as he did every day. He called Muhammad in Saudi Arabia and said, "Brother, Mom has disappeared. There's no trace of her. The house is empty." Muhammad, deeply worried, replied, "Search thoroughly in Kafr Ubaid. I'll come on the first flight." They immediately started searching, asking neighbors one by one, distributing Aisha's photos around the streets and markets, and reporting the case to the police. All the neighbors, including Wafaa, joined the search. While inside, She was praying that the stray dogs would eat the body quickly so nothing would be found. She kept telling herself, the plan worked. It's over. Then came April 30th, 2024, the third day, the day everything changed. Fatima, the farm owner in Kafr Ubaid, discovered the hand in the bag. A stray dog had pulled the bag out of the drainage canal, dragged it into the clover field, and started eating from it. Fatima screamed loudly, and neighbors came running from every direction. They immediately informed the police. The assistant director of Fayum Security arrived with a large criminal investigation team. They took the bag under tight security to the Abshway Central Hospital morgue. Forensics examined the hand and confirmed it belonged to an elderly woman. Initial DNA analysis suggested a woman in her 70s. Then a massive search operation began. Police officers with trained sniffer dogs combed the fields, canals, and drainage ditches around Esbet Galani for hours. The dogs led them to a specific spot in the canal where Haj Wanis Ahmed Wanis, Aisha's relative and nephew, volunteered to go down into the filthy, sewage-filled water, thick with mud and waste. His description later was vivid. I went down. The smell was unbearable, the water up to my knees. I pulled out the first bag. It weighed around 20 kilos. Walked another 50 meters. Found a second bag, about 10 kilos. Walked another 500 meters. The officer threw a cloth over a strange-looking object. When I lifted it, I found the torso, the abdomen and back, without the head. All 5 bags were recovered and sent to the forensic department. It was nearly a complete body, cut with precision, with knife stab wounds to the neck and chest, and the head missing. The forensic report confirmed. Death was immediate. The dismemberment was deliberate to conceal the crime. The victim was approximately 75 years old. They cross-referenced the findings with the missing person reports at Abshway Center and reached the name Aisha Muhammad Sawai. A DNA sample was taken from Toba, and it matched the remains with 99.9% accuracy. The shock shook the entire village. Muhammad returned from Saudi Arabia, and the funeral was held the same day at Kafr Ubaid Mosque. The whole village was in tears. The investigation began immediately on April 30th, 2024. The first thing the officers did was question the family in detail. Muhammad, who had just arrived in Egypt, said, "My mother is kind and has no enemies. The last time I spoke to her was on April 26th. She said she was going to visit Sowad." Toba added, "My mother doesn't go out much. She visits Sowad weekly, sits for a while, then comes back." Sowad, her sister, said, "Aisha came on the 26th, stayed with me for about an hour, then left to visit her neighbor Wafaa. She stayed there for a long time, longer than usual, and then left normally." That's when suspicion immediately fell on Wafaa. The team reviewed the surveillance cameras on the main street with the cooperation of nearby shops and found the last footage of Aisha entering Wafaa's house at 6:15 a.m. on April 27th and Wafaa leaving 2 hours later at 8:15, carrying a large bag on her head, identical to the bags found in the canal. Wafaa was summoned for questioning on May 1st, 2024. They asked her in detail, "Did you see Aisha on April 27th? Did she come to your house?" She quickly replied, "No, the last time was the 26th. She stayed for a while and left. I don't know anything." When confronted with the camera footage, she said, "That's not me. The camera is lying, or it's someone else." The investigators didn't stop there. They launched a secret background check on Wafaa. They discreetly asked neighbors and found out she had large debts, around £200,000. Her husband, Ahmed Saber, had died in 2023 from high blood pressure. She kept borrowing money, even pawning a gold ring from a neighbor. They questioned her son, who lived with her, and he said, "My mother has been stressed about her debts. She sleeps late, but she would never do something like that." On May 2, 2024, the investigation team searched Wafaa's house thoroughly with a warrant from the prosecution. They smelled a faint foul odor in the animal pen and kitchen. Using a blood detection device, they found hidden stains on the floor and noticed that some tiles at the entrance were different from the rest, newer. They asked her, "What's with the new tiles?" She answered, "They were broken, so I replaced them myself." The officer removed the tiles, dug under the sand, and found the head buried there. Aisha's face was clear, her eyes closed, the blood dried. Wafaa collapsed immediately, shocked, screaming, "Oh my God! How did you find it? I didn't do anything." She was detained pending investigation, and on May 3, 2024, during interrogation by the prosecution, she confessed in full detail under pressure and revealed everything that had happened. On May 5, 2024, the prosecution referred her to court on charges of premeditated murder, theft, and mutilation of a corpse. The trial began on October 9, 2024, at the Fayoum Criminal Court and the Supreme State Security Court Terrorism Division. On October 10, Wafaa underwent a psychiatric evaluation. The doctors reported, "Wafaa is psychologically disturbed due to debts and her husband's death, but she is fully responsible for her actions. There is no insanity or coercion." The session was adjourned to October 16 to hear more witnesses. In November 2024, during the second session, Wafaa changed her statements and said that two women came to her and told her, "Get rid of the body, or we'll kill your children," claiming that those veiled women committed the murder and that she didn't know them because they were wearing niqabs. She said she didn't know what to do at the time, so she did what they told her. Her lawyer tried to argue, the psychological pressure from her debts and the loss of her son should grant her partial leniency. She's a victim herself. The prosecution responded with evidence. The cameras are conclusive. Wafaa's DNA was on the knife. She bought the garbage bags herself, and there is no trace of the veiled women. On April 6, 2025, the final verdict was issued: death by hanging for Wafaa Ahmed Saber. The court stated, "The crime is heinous, premeditated murder, theft, and mutilation of the body." In August 2025, the Court of Cassation upheld the verdict, and the execution was carried out in September 2025 after a failed appeal. This story is a powerful lesson about misplaced trust and the evil that can come from those closest to us. Aisha was kind and lived a simple life, but her neighbor, Wafaa Ahmed Saber, driven by despair, devised a demonic plan. Exploiting trust, attacking suddenly, hiding evidence, and desecrating the body. The investigation revealed everything through evidence, and the court ruled justly. May God have mercy on Aisha, forgive her, and protect us from the evil of this world and weak souls. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. If this is your first time on the channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new episodes. See you in the next one. Goodbye.